Binge the full week of The Ray Taylor Show ad-free over at inspireddisorder.com/plus.
This is The Ray Taylor Show.
Aparajito is the second film in the Apu Trilogy, directed by Satyajit Ray. I reviewed the first film of the Apu Trilogy last week, Pather Panchali. A great movie, a gorgeous black and white movie. Surprising that movie was directed by a first-time director, first film by Satyajit Ray. It was acted by new actors, by inexperienced actors. The crew was inexperienced, and a movie that was mind-blowing as far as the technical ability and beauty of the film. Also, a story that was pretty rough. Not rough as in it was poor. It was a poorly told story. I thought it was well told. It's just the subject matter of the story of our main character and his family basically struggling to survive in abject poverty. It's just rough, and seeing how when you have the lack of funds and you are living in a way where you are many ways exposed to the elements, how fragile life can be. And at the end of the first movie, Apu's sister Durga got sick and died. And I gotta say, that's not the only person in his family to die. Not to spoil what I'm about to talk about, but I will be saying some spoilers. I mean, this movie came out in 1965, or 56, I should say. A little dyslexic on that read there. Came out a long time ago. Obviously, I highly recommend it. I am instantly a huge fan of Satyajit Ray. I think these movies are great. This one, not as... I think this one's got a little bit more of a fun ride, despite the fact that the lows are pretty low, but the highs are pretty... We're seeing more. So this movie takes place after the events, directly after the events of the previous movie. So at the end of the first movie, the remaining members of the family, the father, the mom, and Apu, are leaving their village, his dad's ancestral home, leaving it to move to the city for better opportunity. So when this movie picks up, as they're in the city, they have an apartment in Varanasi. His dad is still doing his priest thing, kind of able to do even more than he was before, praying alongside the Ganges River. You're seeing the gorgeous city, the amazing architecture, and a complete contrast to their surroundings in the first movie. This is a very developed city. There's infrastructure. They have running water in their apartment. There's stone floors, solid walls, like all of the things that we're missing from a safe home in a lot of ways are present in this this new location that they're living. Also, because his dad is doing better, because his dad doesn't have to leave the family, he actually gets to come home at the end of work instead of having to travel to try and make money. Getting groceries, the small luxury of being able to go to a grocery store or go to a market and get groceries. They are able to they have, instead of just surviving on what they're able to get, they're able to be choosy about which brands of foods they want to get. Like, it is such a small incremental change in lifestyle, but is massively different than what they experienced in the first film. So already starting off in a much better place than the first film. Apu is out having fun around the city with all these kids. The mom cleaning up their apartment. Their apartment's kind of weird. It feels like their apartment is almost the lobby of this apartment building, right? Because she's like cleaning this main area, right, where the running water, the spigot is. And seemingly the people that live in the apartment building upstairs have to walk through their apartment, or maybe they just have a room that's attached to that and she's just cleaning up that area. Either way, way better situation for them. Absolutely. Stone floors, right? They don't have to worry. The worry of just getting food is not a massive issue. Like, it is amazing that we live in a time, I know I mentioned this in the last episode, last review, that even in the year 2023, like, and the amount of wealth, like in America, the amount of wealth that exists in this country, and there are literally people living how this family was living in the first film, where having a shelter that protects them is very unstable, right? Whether it's living in cold areas where there's no electricity goes out because of horrible infrastructure, or you don't have clean water to drink, or just having the availability of food is something that is so scarce, is absolutely disgusting that in the year 2022, by the time this comes out, 2023, that there are people that are still living in abject poverty and have, are struggling to even just put food on the table. Meanwhile, we have multi-billionaires throwing their money at the most ridiculous stuff that does nothing to help humanity. It's just mind-blowing. It's just mind-blowing, the absolute contrast. The just this wide spectrum of existence that you can have on this world. And if you're born into a wealthy family, like, then you have the potential to be at this upper echelon. But just by pure luck, you could be born into a family that has nothing, and your entire existence is struggle. And the people on the other side of that spectrum look down at you and demonize you and blame you for your situation, which is insane. They don't take credit for being born into wealth, but they have no problem demonizing people that are below them. It's absolutely disgusting. So let me step away from the reality of life and get back into this movie where this family is doing good, kids having fun. You got the dad doing his preaching. He makes a friend, invites him over for tea, right? Gets to share him his tea. Find out that this guy is trying to save up his money so he can get a bride, because that's just how things work there. You gotta pay the father for his daughter so they can get married. It's just a crazy situation. But regardless, things are going much better than where they were at. But of course, this family is cursed. Not literally, but this family is cursed. When somebody gets sick, it doesn't go well, right? We saw that last movie with Durga, the sister. She had this fever, couldn't get rid of it, didn't have access to medicine. Next thing you know, no longer alive. In this movie, we see the dad get ill, right? Hesitant to get help, which is something that a lot of people who grow up poor, right? Myself included, I especially, you can't afford. You grow up not ever able to afford to go to a doctor, so when things happen, it's not the first solution you think of. Usually it's like, well, let's wait and see if it gets better. And things don't go better, right? Spoilers, I'm going to be spoiling this movie, right? Because I want to talk about it. I want to talk about the aspects of it. It's a great movie. I mean, obviously, it's watch the first one, watch this one. I'm super excited to watch the next one, but I'm going to be spoiling. It's a family. It takes place early 1900s. I forget the actual year. I think 1910, somewhere around there. Apu's around 10 years old in this movie, although he grows up. We see him grow into, a young adult, old child. He's gets to maybe like late teens, I guess he gets to, or teens he gets to. But we're seeing definitely more of Apu's journey in this one. because, so spoilers, so his dad dies. His dad dies, and it's because he's the breadwinner. He's the guy who made the money. So now it's like they're struggling. She has to go. She's working with somebody else to be like a maid for her great uncle or whatever. They end up having to leave. They end up moving back to the village, different part of the village. It feels like a much bigger kind of a house that's actually built up. It's not in the shape that their old house was at. I think they're living with another family. Feels like a larger piece of property that they're living at, but back on the village, so out of the city. And Apu is starting to train to be a priest. His father was a priest, so kind of following in the family business, as it were.
Let's take a little break from the show to promote
The benefits of Inspired Disorder Plus. So you go inspireddisorder.com/plus. Sign up, $5 a month. You get to binge the full week of The Ray Taylor Show ad-free. You get to watch all of the live painting videos I do. You get a special members-only discount and deals for all of the artwork and merch that I sell. You also get the complete podcast back catalog of every podcast I've ever produced. Hundreds of episodes, countless different podcasts. You also get access to my personal blog. A new blog comes out every week. In addition to that, you get my creative writing that I'm releasing. You also get access to asking me anything. 14 years of experience podcasting. I've been creating art my entire life. I've been using Photoshop since middle school, and you can contact me to ask me questions about that or anything else. So those are the benefits for signing up for Inspired Disorder Plus.
And now let's get back to the show.
On his walk back from training to be a priest, he sees these kids playing around, having fun in school, and he begs his mom to let him go to school. Right? There was, in the first movie, he kind of went to school kind of begrudgingly, and now it's just like he misses that socializing. He misses having fun with these kids. So he ends up going to school, and it turns out, like, there's a scene where he's reading out loud, and it sounds beautiful. Like, his cadence and the rhythm and just the kind of, he beautifully reads better. I don't know what he's saying, obviously. I guess there are definitely translations. But when he's speaking, it sounded beautiful. Sounded poetic, the way he spoke. And for somebody like me who is not good at reading out loud, it's just mind-blowing and beautiful to see somebody who's good at doing it, especially a child, and not just good at reading out loud, but like in such a way that sounds beautiful as well. But he does really well in school, which then encourages the head of the school to introduce him to a bunch of books. It's like, I'm going to give you a bunch of books you want to read. And he's giving him books on like science, travel, biographies on people, inventions. And this kid is like a sponge. He gets obsessed with it, right? Showing his mom all these things that he's learning, like how eclipses work and all these different things. So definitely showing the, like, this kid finding something that he's absolutely passionate about, has a passion for learning, right? And next you see kind of him as he's older, and he's like second in his class. He's super proud. The head of the school's like, you should consider continuing your studies. His mom at first is against it, which definitely, it's interesting because now it's just them two. It's just the mom and Apu. And obviously, if he goes to continue his studies, he's leaving his mom alone. So part of her selfish desires are to keep Apu around, because he's all she has left in the family, right? She's already lost her daughter. She lost her husband. All she has left. But at the same time, she knows this is an opportunity for Apu to better himself, to do something that his family couldn't do before him, right? So she quickly kind of changes her tune and becomes excited for him to go to school, which is kind of cool to see how at first, initially, she was against it, but almost immediately turns a corner and is like almost sharing his excitement for going to school and doing this thing. and she had saved money while she was working, because at first she's like, how are we going to pay for that? We don't have to pay for that. He's like, well, there's a scholarship. They're going to pay me to go, and I can get a job and to pay the rest. And then she's like, oh, well, when she changes her tune, she's like, shows them, check this out. I got all this money saved. So completely kind of refreshing in an instant, because it could have been something that I think is more common in a lot of situations where a parent doesn't want their kid to go and will do everything to sabotage that from happening or to keep that from happening, where she definitely changes her tune and is stoked about it. So he goes, and he's back in another city, right? Developed city, again, although it's, grungy. It's definitely, not the expensive part of the city. But he goes to the school. The guy who runs the school or whatever has a print shop, and he's like, here, you can have an apartment if you work in my print shop. So this kid's set up, he's got the scholarship money. He's got the money his mom gave him, and he's able to be able to live there if he just works in this print shop. So everything's kind of set up and working for him. Going to Calcutta is where the school is. And it's, it's like the first moment in these movies where it's like, you can see, where he came from, like the home he was in when he was born, and him losing his sister, and then moving, and then losing his father, and then moving back, and then now having this opportunity, right? Knowing this guy who comes from nothing, right? You want to talk about pick yourself up by your bootstraps, right? It's not what rich people think is pick yourself up by your bootstraps, which for them is get a loan from a family or get money left to you, and then use that in a way to start a life for yourself. This is somebody who's literally coming from nothing. It's not somebody who says they started from the bottom, now they're here, who started as a child actor and now is a famous pop rap artist. Like, it is somebody that literally came from nothing and has this opportunity. And I think he understands this opportunity, but also has a passion for learning, right? He begged his mom to go to school. And now he, in many ways, begged his mom to be able to continue his studies doing this because he is so good at it, right? Because he enjoys the process of learning, enjoys acquiring the knowledge. And he's also stoked because he finds out that the apartment has electricity in it, which is the first time, right? He went from no running water, no electricity, to moving to a city where it had running water, then back to the rural part of Bengal, and now he is in Calcutta, and now he has not only, I would assume they still have running water, but also has a light switch in his bedroom, which is high-class living, I got to tell you. Then they have this montage of him learning and working and all that, which is great. And then we see, a big part of this movie is his relationship with his mom and how him going to school and starting to gain independence has affected that relationship with his mom, and also seeing how his mom is handling that. Like, she doesn't want to directly tell him to come home or ask him to come home. She almost wants him to do it on his own. She doesn't want to pressure him into it, but, still kind of dropping kind of subtle type of hints that she wants him to come home. And he finally does come home, right? And he enjoys it, sleeps all the time, reading his book, whatever. She loves him being there. And then it's time for him to go back. And she doesn't wake him up, right? So he's late to get to a train. Makes it in time, but as he's waiting for this train, decides, you know what, I will. My mom wants me to stay longer. It's not going to affect my studies as much as I said it would. So I'll go back and stay a little bit longer, right? Kind of giving her what she wants. But then when he goes back to school, he starts making excuses for why he won't be coming back home, right? because he needs to focus on his studies. It's going to ruin his studies if he comes home, which I'm sure on some level is true. But also it's like he is enjoying his freedom. He made a friend. They are hanging out. They're, experiencing life in a way. He's getting educated. Like it is his first real taste of freedom in a way. And it's his first real experience of going out into the world. And he's been reading all these books about these people who have traveled and invented things. And I'm sure a big part of him wants to do that too. That just increases his desire and thirst to explore what's out there. Now that he sees what's all outside of these villages that he grew up in, like there's so much of a world there for him. And I'm sure on some level, the idea of going back to his home feels like a regression in some ways, and doesn't want to get stuck living at home.
I want to take a quick break from the show to let you all know that there is official merch for the Ray Taylor Show. Head on over to inspireddisorder.com. You can get t-shirts, different artwork available, different designs, all on high-quality materials in all the sizes. There's also iPhone cases made of biodegradable material. That's right. This is not bad for the environment. This is good for the environment. So all of those designs that are available on t-shirts are also available on phone cases. Designed by me, sold by me. Head on over to inspireddisorder.com to support the Ray Taylor Show and promote it out in the world, so all of the people in your life can see that you are a fan of the Ray Taylor Show. Now, let's get back to that very show right now.
Which is an interesting kind of thing. I read that there was a controversy that the relationship between Apu and his mom is handled much differently in the movie than the book that these movies was based on. I would be interested to know how the books handle it, but there was a lot of controversy. A lot of people didn't like how Satyajit Ray changed the book and how their relationship is. So I don't know the details of why that is. I would imagine maybe, not having the respect for your mom and doing the thing, and it was handled differently. Regardless, I like the way it was handled. I thought it was true to life. How many people who finally get the taste of freedom away from home, it's so hard for them to go back home for many reasons. One of which, I've experienced that too. I grew up in a desert. When I finally left and moved out in my 20s and moved to San Diego, like the idea was I was never coming back there. And now here I am at 42 and I'm back there, but for way different reasons. But still, it's not the ideal location I would, if I could choose, I would not be living here. But life is a crazy ride. As Apu knows, Apu's had an insane ride, right? Lost his sister, lost his dad, finally has this opportunity to escape. Finally has this opportunity to make something of himself and do something and have that autonomy, have that freedom. So I think it makes sense. But when he goes back home, obviously his mom starts getting sick. And anytime anybody in these movies starts getting sick, just prepare. It's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time. And in some ways, her illness feels like it's almost due to a broken heart. It almost feels like her depression of her son not visiting him, despite the fact her not asking him, her not pressuring him into visiting, I think a lot of that's just depression. She's on her own. She doesn't have anybody left. But, she can't, it's a difficult situation, right? Because what she wants may not be what's best for him, may not be what's best for his future. But at the same time, his neglect in going home almost potentially could have pushed her health downward. Who knows? I mean, life is a very complex thing. There's not easy one-to-one explanations for why things happen, but when he does come home, it's too late. And it's sad, man. It's sad because now he's alone, right? He was on his own before, but at least he had his mom. He could go back home. He could go back and have the, the food she makes and all that stuff, have her fix his clothes. But now she's gone. He doesn't have that anymore. He's all on his own. And his number one priority is to get back to school in time for his exams, right? He knows that this is his last opportunity in life to continue his studies, right? Where some people may be like, oh, be depressed and just give up and just like, I'm just going to move home and this is going to be my thing, right? If she had a business, if there was a family business, that's usually how these stories go, right? Apu would have been like, I got to stay home to take over the business. But there is no business. And he has now the absolute freedom to do whatever he wants. Like, even in talking to his friend is like, don't you ever dream of traveling the world and going to these places that you've read of? And Apu's like, I would, but my mom would never let me. Right? There was always that kind of tether, that leash, that cord between him and his mom, where his mom didn't even like him going to school, didn't like him going to Calcutta to continue his studies. So the idea of going around the world exploring is way out of the question. Now he's got that freedom, right? But he also has that mentality of knowing where he came from, which is an interesting mentality because once you've survived living that way, the fear of losing, like you're able to take more chances in a lot of ways, and you live life in a different way where people who have never experienced hardships in their life can be crumbled when something doesn't go right. Right? He has a lot of strength, but also probably a lot of trauma. Everybody in his family died. I would hope he gets good medical attention from this third movie. But that's what I expect in this third movie is, this movie ends with him returning to school to finish his exams. But I expect that third movie is to see what he does after school, where he travels, what he learns and does, and just seeing the further conclusion of this kid's life, which has been crazy ups and downs. Definitely at least had some up moments in this movie. 2 downs. Only one person died in the first movie. This movie, everybody died. Like, his dad and both of his parents died in this movie. So it's like definitely more death in this, but they're at the same time balanced out, I think, with these opportunities that he's had, the joy that he had when he found his love for learning. We see how this family is just cursed with illness and death. But obviously, through education, he has an opportunity to escape. He has an opportunity to be independent and to make something of his life that he wouldn't have had if he didn't pursue his education. So I absolutely love this movie. I'm super excited to see how it concludes. Apparently there's a biopic on Satyajit Ray of the same name. Maybe I'll watch that. But I'm excited to watch more of Satyajit Ray's movies in general, but definitely excited to see how this trilogy ends and see what happens with Apu in the third film. So I highly recommend checking these out. The Apu Trilogy. This one is Aparajito, which I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but feels good. And highly recommend checking them out. They're great movies, and watch them. Excited for next week, the conclusion.
New episodes of The Ray Taylor Show come out every single day. Subscribe on YouTube and everywhere our podcasts are found. Binge the full week over at inspireddisorder.com/plus. Buy Ray Taylor Show merch over at inspireddisorder.com. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Peace out!
Today is the day where you wake up and you realize that everything that you've been dreaming about, everything that you've been wanting, every goal and wish and hope that you've ever had can become real. Dreams can come true. What you manifest in your mind, you can bring to reality.
Dreaming of a white Christmas, just like the ones I used to know. Dope, 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 be merry and bright, and may all your Christmas happy. Dope, 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 dope. Aparajito!